the best Gen 9 Pokemon appears, a battle with Rayquaza, Spirgatito's evolution, and shiny Zygarde? Here's what's happening in Pokemon Horizons. Episode 41, Enter the Intense Mom. As Tinkaton continues to be a little menace on the Brave Olivine, Freed surprisingly returns with Dot's mother. Looks like Dot's free trial as a Rising Voltackler is up, so time for her to get the boot. Getting to meet Dot's mom was interesting, as we get enough time with her to get a feel for her personality and, oh, she's just an overbearing Murdoch. That checks out. As you'd expect, Dot has a hard time expressing herself to her mother, so Liko and Roy decide to have a chat with her first, which helps us learn how Dot joined the Rising Voltacklers. Back when she was just a budding streamer, she loved to use others' real-world experiences for her content, and this is where she first learned about Freed. His research really inspired her. Now, if only she could somehow meet him in person. He was sleeping on her couch. This interaction was neat, as Freed immediately saw how their different interests aligned. Dot showcased her tech skills, which prompted Freed to ask her to make the Rising Voltacklers app, while Dot was interested in adventuring to help broaden her content. She was still holding herself back though, but thanks to Iono's stream, she was able to gain the confidence to eventually join the crew. This is probably my favorite part of the episode just because I always found it a bit disappointing that Nidothing was a popular streamer from the start of the series. I just think seeing her come up would have been far more interesting, so this gives me hope that we'll eventually see how she met Iono. Now back to the present, Dot's mother challenges her to a battle in hopes of allowing her to truly express how she's felt. And this was a really strong part of the episode as well. On top of Dot finally expressing how much fun she's had so far, she also shows her determination and skills as a trainer when Quaxly learns Low Kick. This is exactly what Dot's mother wanted, and she's happy to see her daughter truly blossoming through this experience. So overall, I think this was a solid episode. It gave us some much needed backstory for Dot, and it's great to see how far she's come since the day she used to be locked up in her room. Just goes to show that touching a little bit of grass goes a long way. This episode's rating is a 7 out of 10. Episode 42, Transform, the hero of the sea, Palafin. It looks like the Rising Voltacklers are finally in Paldea, and their first stop is to hang out at this beach. I ain't complaining though, cause this gave us the anime debut of my favorite Gen 9 Pokemon, Palafin. So this just might be the best episode of Pokemon Horizons. Am I a little biased with that statement? 100%. Due to his epic acts of heroism, Palafin has become a famous hero on the beach. I just love how epic they made his scenes, and the fun little homages to cartoon and comic book superheroes is just the kind of treatment I'd expect for this Pokemon. Now, although everyone loves Palafin, the scum of the earth photographers are obsessed with trying to see what Palafin looks like while it's transforming. This in turn causes them to come up with a scheme to fake an emergency that turns out to be a real one once a group of Cloth attack. Because the Snap Bros are watching, Palafin can't transform to help Roy, so he does what he does best, losing. Luckily, Liko is able to help distract them, allowing Palafin to transform right in front of her. This was pretty cool, as earlier in the episode, it's established how Palafin can sense people's feelings, and he sensed Liko's compassion towards it, as she wanted to be respectful of Palafin's feelings towards his transformation. Now, during the battle against Cloth, Palafin gets in some trouble, and this is where we get the craziest twist from the episode. Ludlow is All Might.
I am here!
Alright, he's not actually All Might, but he basically is. Turns out the old man is the superhero Mighty G who protects the seas, and he's also a good friend of this hero Palafin. I don't know about you, but I did not have buff Ludlow in my 2024 bingo card. But even still, I loved every second of this. I really hope Mighty G isn't a one-time gag, and we could potentially see even more of him in the future, especially if it means we could also see him team up with Palafin once again. But I'm just glad that they did my boy Palafin justice in this episode, and it honestly made me fall even more in love with this Pokemon. The icing on the cake is the ending of the episode, revealing a mysterious tower that was recently built by a suspicious group of people. You hear that? It sounds like plot. This episode's rating is an unbiased 8 out of 10. Episode 43, A Letter of Challenge from the Explorers. As the crew stock up on supplies, their attention is drawn to these special Diglett treats. And lucky for Liko and Roy, they get a rare Wiggly treat for free by helping the old man who works at the shop. Cannot say the same for Coral though. Oh wait, yeah. The Explorers. They're a thing. After what's felt like forever, the Explorers are back in action, because of a Wigglet treat of all things. Alright, the anime's gotta know how ridiculous this is. I mean, even Liko brings this up. Because Coral really wants the treats, she challenges Liko and Roy to a battle for it, which also ends up pulling Sidian into the fray. Now, as wacky of a reason as this is, although it does feel in line with Coral's character, this battle was actually really good. Off rip, you can tell that Liko and Roy are still out of their league, which I appreciate. An easy victory here would have just ruined the dramatic tension they brought in their last altercation. They aren't completely useless, however, as they come up with their own believable ways to overcome their weaknesses. For instance, Fuecoco uses his flames to thaw out the ice that Laylee throws it in, and then uses Stomping Tantrum to disrupt Ice Spinner, while Liko has Spirgatito use Quick Attack between Garganacl's legs for a fast escape, allowing it to land a direct hit from behind. And just when things were getting worse, Spirgatito activates Overgrowth to help them get the edge. I was genuinely worried that Freed would show up to save the day as he usually does, but he doesn't, which was great. And I think what perfectly tied this all together was the fact that Coral and Sidian weren't even going all out yet. They were just toying with Liko and Roy, and they still gave them trouble. This gave our heroes the opportunity to show off their skills without completely closing the power gap just yet. And just before they battle even more seriously, the explorers are called back to their hideout, where they plan to summon Rayquaza. So now that suspicious tower from the last episode is starting to make more sense. Honestly, this episode felt like the tease before an even greater confrontation that's right around the corner. I'm just not the biggest fan of the way they decided to bring the explorers back. It felt a little forced, but aside from that, the rest of the episode was enjoyable. This episode's rating is a 7 out of 10. Episode 44, a plan to capture Rayquaza. Now that it's known what the explorers are up to, Freed investigates the mysterious tower and finds Spinel there. So he meets with the Rising Voltaclers and commences his mission to thwart the explorers. Oh, it was a trap. So it turns out this tower was created specifically to catch Freed, which shows just how big of a threat he is to them. And the small, dark, and confined space is to prevent Freed from using Charizard and potentially terastallizing. I'll tell you what, man, that Spinel guy is pretty smart. He definitely did his homework. That being said though, that isn't enough to stop our boy Freed, as of course he decides to fight with Cap instead. Can I just say how ironic it is that it took Ash leaving the anime for us to finally get Pikachu versus Umbreon? Where was this in Johto? Since Freed is a bit occupied, it's up to Liko, Roy, and Ludlow to find the explorer's real location, which actually happens to be this lighthouse near Lavincia. It's here where they use a device that's supposed to mimic the energy Terapagos gives off when it calls Rayquaza. And lo and behold, Rayquaza actually shows up. The explorers actually had a pretty decent plan here. They got their biggest op off the board, got Rayquaza to lower its guard as it was expecting its buddy Terapagos. Also, they can unleash the perfect ambush to heavily weaken it. This just might be the best Explorers episode yet, as not only we get to see most of them involved this time, but we also get a good grasp of their relationship to one another based on how they work together. Especially when it comes to Spinel, as we see he's intentionally the one battling Freed, so he doesn't have to deal with the much harder task of facing Rayquaza. And then of course there's the pettiness of not including Amethio for this mission. What a guy. Unfortunately for him, he wasn't expecting Freed to use his attacks to his advantage, so eventually they made a pretty smooth exit. At the same time, Dot steps up in a big way by being able to shut down the device that attracted Rayquaza. I also love the practical use of her Needle Thing costume. That was a nice touch. In the end though, things take a turn for the worst once Coral's fury leads to a self-destruct that knocks Rayquaza into the Brave Olivine, putting the rest of the crew in danger. This episode's rating is a 9 out of 10. Episode 45, To a Place Far, Far Away. Continuing from the previous episode, the Brave Olivine makes an emergency landing, and thankfully everyone is okay. There will be some repercussions to this however, but we'll talk about that later, cause right now, it's battle time. After hearing Liko and Roy's request, Rayquaza accepts their challenge. From the start, we get to see the group's excellent teamwork skills, thanks to some moments like Cap's Rising Volt Tackle being used, Quaxly's Low Kick to help Spirgatito reach Rayquaza, and even Quaxly's Water Gun being used to save Fuecoco. Wait, was Dot low-key the MVP of the early battle? That's actually impressive. Eventually, Rayquaza starts to take the gang seriously once Fuecoco lands a super effective disarming voice, which is an awesome payoff to the Crocodile episode where he learned that move. After this though, the battle goes to a whole nother level once Rayquaza unleashes a devastating Draco Meteor that almost hits Liko. However, the mad lad Amethio makes the save. Although he's clearly here for his own reasons, the fact that he saved Liko to begin with and even puts his pride to the side for a terastallized team up with Freed truly cements Amethio as a wild card for this series. He just might be the best character. And if you thought this moment wasn't epic enough, after their loss, Liko and Roy are determined to prove themselves, which leads to Fuecoco learning Flame Charge and Spirgatito evolving into Floragato. Having these two being able to land the final hit before Rayquaza flees is very fitting too. Not only have they proven their growth to Rayquaza, but also to us the audience. Eventually, Liko, Roy, and even Dot all express their interest to improve, and ask Freed to teach them how to terastallize. So while the Rising Voltaclers take some time to repair the ship, our three leads will soon begin their terastallization training. This was a great way to set up the next arc. As for this one, it ends with the explorers being ordered to spy on the rising Volt Tacklers as they collect the remaining hero Pokemon, while also giving us a brief look at the boss Gibeon, who's rocking a shiny Zygarde? Now this was mind-blowing. What's even more interesting is that he says he'll return to Rakua and speaks almost as if he has a connection to Lucius. So this just has me all the more hyped for future reveals. This episode's rating is a 10 out of 10.